go to the end of this life, we pass over. I always feel there's a transitional phase. So the first thing that they'll do is to make sure that everybody else down here is okay. And then there'll be like a healing process that they will go to so they can build up their energy. It's up to you when you choose to come back down again. Sometimes if we jump back too quickly, we haven't planned enough or we haven't prepared enough. And sometimes we get to a certain point and we might think, do you know what, life's a bit too hard. I don't think I'm really ready. I don't think I'm equipped. And you might find that some people might choose to go home earlier. Hello, I'm Alison Grey. I'm a psychic medium and I live in the UK in a lovely Cotswolds place called Chipping Norton. And thank you very much, Trey, for inviting me onto your show.
The mindful medium, Alison, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's sunny.
I want to know more about you. Yeah, it's finally sunny here too. It's been like a month worth of rain. How does one like yourself become a medium, right? I feel like you come up from a very traditional background. We spoke a while ago and we kind of went over your story, but I'm just fascinated. How does one step into that world of mediumship coming from the traditional, I guess, background?
So I feel for me, it was more of like being guided into my spiritual side. From a very young child, having lots of different experiences. And a lot of these experiences, I had no idea what was going on with me or what the spirit world was all about. For me, as you said, I was from a traditional background and my family were more kind of Christian than anything else. But I had some weird experiences. I had some strange dreams. So when my grandfather died when I was 10, I kind of really then begun to think there's something different out there. We don't just kind of like live. There's some, when somebody passes over, they don't just die, they go somewhere else. So I obviously knew about heaven, but I didn't really know at 10 what that meant. So when my grandfather visited me in the dream, I then started to realize that I wanted to find out a little bit more about the afterlife. And in my teenage years, I kind of took that on board and I was drawn to crystals, had my first pack of tarot cards. I read a lot about astrology. I read a lot, different kinds of books. We didn't have Google back then, so it was a case of books or talking to people. And when I had a long relationship, and when that finished, my mum said, do you want to go to a clairvoyant? And I thought, well, what's one of those? And so that's how I kind of got introduced to it. But for me, I didn't realize I was going to be a medium. That was never part of it. I was just searching for answers, I guess. But the calling, and I'm going to call it the calling, because for me, it just stepped into my life, and I knew that I was being called for something. I knew that I was being directed in a different way. So I went on and became a primary school teacher. I loved understanding about children. I went into special needs. So for me, it was all about who are these people? How do we connect to ourselves? So I always had these really big questions. And I guess it's that thirst of exploring and finding out that directed me down this path. And I just met other like-minded people, and it really just opened itself up to me. And I was invited to join a healing circle where I could explore all different types of energy. And from that healing circle, I was invited to join a developmental circle, which is what we do when we're trying to make sense and learn things like grounding, opening up, how to connect to the spirit world. So it's kind of been quite a long journey. And I guess it wasn't until I had my second child that I felt ready to do that, because I was a professional. I was a teacher. That's what you do. You have the professional hat on. Whereas this is like stepping outside into a field where not everybody believes and not everybody understands. Religion, straight religion, yes, but spiritualism is slightly different, you
Sure.
know. I remember my sister-in-law saying to me, "What, you talk to dead people?" And I was like, "Okay, if you're going to put it like that." So, you know, it took a lot of bravery, really, for me to kind of come out of what they call the spiritual closet, and embrace it. But I feel like it was something I was destined to do, something that I needed to do, and now I'm really at home with it,
Sure.
because I've connected to the energy. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
How do you experience reality, like everyday reality? Like, what do you see?
Well, for reality for me is I've got 4 children, so life just goes on. Every day I wake up and I'm a normal person. But every day I'm connected to the spirit world. So I wake up and I talk to my loved ones in the spirit world. I ask for guidance. I look for signs. And for me, I do lots of readings. So I'm working with spirit nearly every day. But there's a lot to keep me grounded. So I like to go out in nature as well. And I think the important thing is that we have a balance. We know when we're working and connected to the spirit world, so that we're always connected, but knowing when I'm working with spirit and when I'm just being mum or sister or whoever I am.
What does the spirit world look like to you? Does it have color? Is it like this 3D reality? Do you see it through your imagination? What does that look like?
So I have had the pleasure of seeing spirit, you know, in front of me, and I've heard spirit, but generally it's up in my third eye. It's up in my not imagination, but it's in my third eye. But for me, it's definitely color, and I feel like it is a place where, for me, it's love. So everything is about love. I often get, through my readings, I often get asked, you know, well, we didn't speak before we passed, and we were having this kind of argument, or this happened, or I hadn't, you know, I wasn't able to get there on time. And I'm like, for me, the spirit world is about love. It's about forgiveness. They have the bigger, larger picture. They have that understanding. They see everything. So when we are here on the earth, we're really bound by our fear-based thoughts. When you're up in the spirit world, for me, it's a place of love, forgiveness. And, you know, for me, that's full of colour, that's full of freedom. I feel like they can go anywhere. I often get readings where they say, oh, they've been to this place that they've always wanted to go to. You know, they've been to the mountains, they've been to across the sea and stuff. So for me, I feel like in a blink of an eye, they can go wherever they like. They can be in different places at different times. They're not bound by time, or space.
Well, you said something in there that's triggering my curiosity now. So how do you know the difference between your imagination and third eye? Like, how is there, like you said, you see color. How do you tell the difference between the two?
Well, for me, when I'm imagining things, it's things that I know. So if I'm reading a book again, you know, I'm listening to the words. It's very, very similar. When I'm working with the spirit world, they're using my own knowledge, they're using my brain, they're using my understanding. So they will show me things that I recognize, which is why I build up, or have built up over time, like my own little dictionary. And when they show me those images, then I can therefore interpret them. So they do use your mind, but it's not the imagination. The imagination you can create. Whereas for me, when I'm doing my readings and I'm talking to the spirit world, I work on that evidential mediumship. So I'm looking for evidence. So I'm asking them to present to me something that the other person's going to know. So if it's my imagination, I'll create. If it's the spirit world, then they're guiding me and showing me information.
Do you think the
And that
spirit?
can be, sorry.
No, you're good. Do you think the spirit world is true reality and this is a dream, or vice versa?
No, I think it's true reality. I don't think we're living in a dream. I think for me, the whole big topic of where do we go afterwards, and time and space and physics and blows my mind. I like to keep things really real, really simple. And I know there's, you know, it's much bigger than I can perhaps got the words to use to describe. So for me, I like to say to them, you know, we keep it simple, we keep it real. And then everybody will have a better understanding. If it's too complicated, people get lost in words, I think.
Sure. No, 100%. The dying process. What do your communications with the other side like tell you about the dying process here? Like, is it, do we experience the entire process in the death? Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, do we, like, if it's tragic, do we feel all of that and then go to the next world, or do we kind of like have the option of stepping out, observing it, and then just, kind of going from there?
I love that question. That was the question that I had as a teenager. And that's what really worried me. And that's what scared me about death. So my experience now, my understanding now is that depending on how we pass, so if it's an illness, then we transition over a period of time. If we have the faith, I feel that transition is easier, it's quicker. If we're scared, I feel like they take time to show us the spirit world. So we may lose consciousness, we may go in and out of consciousness, and that's the spirit world attuning us to the process of passing over. If it's tragic, I believe that we come out of our body before the impact. So therefore we come as an observation, we're observing it. And apart from that's my understanding, that's also my wish as well. Does that make sense? Because
Sure.
I feel like my dad died he had a heart attack while he was driving. So again, although that was my belief, my wish also is he wasn't feeling that. He didn't feel the pain. His soul had been removed from the body before the impact.
Wow, that's so powerful. Like, so how do you collect the data, or the evidence, right? Like, they say something meaningful to the client. Do they bring things in the reality that is evidence? Like, what does that look like?
So I always start with, so the process that I have, and every medium's different, so everybody will do it in a different way. But whenever I'm with the reading, I link in with that person to make sure that my energy is matching their energy, that we're able to read, I'm able to read for them. And vice versa, they have to like me, so to speak. And then the spirit world, it's like a door. It's like they open the door, and then I wait to see who comes in and who stands in. So the moment they step in, I can either see the image in my head, like in my mind's eye, or I can just feel it, or I just sometimes know it. And I build them up so I can feel their energy. And for me, it's always for me about characteristics. So some people might go with the vision and what they look like, but for me, I can say I've got a gentleman here, he's tall, he's this, that, the other, he's got a lovely sense of humor. And then they start drip feeding the information. So they'll give me maybe names, or they'll give me they'll give me months of the year, which could be like a birthday, anniversary, and they just build their energy up. And it's like coming in, sitting down, having a conversation. And then somewhere along the line, they're kind of just saying, oh, and just remind them that I was there when they were in the garden, or I was there while they were in the car, or this is what also is coming up for them later on in the year. So I always go back and check that I'm still linked into the person in the spirit world by that evidential pieces of information.
I've always wondered about that. Like, even with psychics, about future timelines too. Like, I wonder if you're tapping into something psychically about me that is, like, are you actually like communicating with the person who just recently passed, or are you tapping into my like energy field and pulling up, you know, memories or thoughts or experiences, and then the larger consciousness system is kind of feeding you bits of information to tell me that's evidential for myself, to maybe, like, expand my awareness and give me a little bit more direction in my life, or healing. I always wonder about that too. Like, is it the actual person that you're communicating with, or is it like the energy that is you're drawing from me that is giving you that information?
Again, lovely. I love that. I like the depth of that question. So for me, psychics very much read the energy of the person. So in your aura, you hold all your information of all your past lives, all your future lives, everything, all your experiences are held within your auric field. So a psychic can tap into that. But when I'm speaking to the spirit world, they then tell me things that have been going on, and things about themselves that I wouldn't know about, and then things about you that perhaps you don't know about that are coming up. So again, that's the evidence of me communicating with the spirit world, rather than just tapping into your energy. And I always say to people that, if you understand it, great. If you don't, please let me know. I'll go back and check, because I'm not worried about those, because I know that the spirit world have to come into my mind. I have to process it and give it out to the person sitting opposite me. So if I've misunderstood a particular word or energy or phrase or something, I can go back and check. And sometimes they say, no, I still don't understand that. They go away, and then I'll get a text message. Oh, you said that. I do know that person, and that is true. And and I've checked with my mum, or I've checked with whoever. And I love it, because then I know that, the communication that you have is real. And not just tapping into your energy.
I love that. Right. How do you not filter that stream of information and data that they're giving you, right? Like, how do you just, with all the programs that you have internally and the experiences that you've had in life, how do you like make sure it's the most purest form of communication for that client possible?
So I do like a little meditation where I get myself out of the way before I start linking in. So I'll before I do anyone's reading, I'm opening myself up, I'm connecting, I'm raising my vibration, and it's kind of like I'm out of the way. I'm not a trance medium, so I don't go as far back as a trance, but I do shift my subconsciousness, or I do slip into that. So I'm literally just connecting. So I won't remember any of your things that I've said to you. And that always makes me laugh when people say, do you remember that time you said? I'm like, I've got no idea. I could read for you today, read for you in about 2 months' time, and I won't remember anything, because it's not me. I'm the channel, I'm the medium, so to speak. So I'm the person, the go-between between the spirit world and the person down here. So therefore, it's not for me to remember, it's not for me to tap into that. I'm literally just communicating what I get, and it comes in and I give it out. Because if it comes in and I think about it, I'm changing it, and then it's not quite so accurate.
Sure. Has this work evolved your consciousness?
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's a hard thing to get through your own consciousness. You have to turn it down. So a trance medium will pretty much turn it right off, so that they completely pop. I always say pop off. They go somewhere else, and they allow the spirit to come in. So I blend really closely with the spirit world, but I don't allow them to take over. So there's always going to be an aspect of consciousness within me in my readings, and the level of consciousness will depend, because the spirit will come with an energy. So I said that a lot of the time it's in my third eye. That's because it's easier. They use less energy that way. They use less energy. If they materialize, then that takes up a lot of them. So they may not talk as much, because their energy is like, now can you see me? So I allow them to blend, and as they blend, they make my heart race. They make me feel different things. And again, I use my whole body, all my senses. So we call them clairs, all of those senses, in order to interpret what the spirit world are trying to convey to me.
Is there a common message like throughout those messages and communication? Is there something that they're just like, these guys just don't get it, man? Like, we're trying to tell you this is what's happening, this is what's going on. Like, I know a lot of it is healing for the individual and it's very subjective, but have you seen over all the years that you've done this, like a common thread, a common communication that they need or want it for us to know?
So there's a few. Mainly is that they have transitioned, and they are safe, and they are happy, that they're still around them, that reassurance that they're still there, that although they've had to come away from the earth plane, they're still very much here. So they've transcended, that love has transcended, that there is something other than just human life. They always want to come back to say, we love you. Or sometimes there's a thank you, thank you for everything you've done for me, or, thank you for nursing me through something. So for me, it's always about the love and then the guidance. So make sure that they are, for example, like you are leading the best life that you're meant to be leading, because they'll know where you're supposed to be getting to. They know where, your destination points are. And they just want to guide you along the way. So they may say, look, I'm going to show you these signs. Look out for these signs. That's confirmation that I'm with you on your journey. And I think that's probably the most powerful message that they give.
Wow. Have you seen like angels, guides that are connected with you, like in your 3D reality? Like if you look out the window and you see, like, have you seen a guide or whatever someone there trying to give you some type of message, or do you see it in symbols too, like we do, like a bird or a number or like a song, a lyric,
Yeah.
or things like that?
I'm really big on signs. I love my signs. Yeah. And I know some of the signs that I have are kind of agreed signs. So when I see them, I know that they're linked to certain people. Sometimes I'll ask my guides or my loved ones or the angels, can you show me something if I'm meant to be doing something? So again, I communicate via signs. The reason I do that, because it's very hard for a medium to read for themselves, because we know everything inside us. So it's much easier for me to read for other people. So I still ask for signs, but they'll pop up in my dreams. I get flashes, and sometimes they just zoom into my face while I'm kind of like, as I'm beginning to wake up. And so I know that they're around me. And I know that, today's going to be, I maybe need to pay attention today, or something's going to happen today. I might get those feelings, and sometimes they'll be like, am I worried about this? But generally speaking, the spirit world is not a place where we need to worry or fear, because they're guiding us. Usually.
I always wonder too if they're extremely more honest over there, right? Like, so, like, have you ever had a client come to you and like they're trying to connect with their dad or their mom or someone, right? And the mom and dad comes through and is like, "Man, you are a real turd. Like, you really were an a-hole. I just want you to know that, but I still love you from the other side." Or is it all light and love over there? Have they ever been like totally transparent with an individual or
Absolutely
client?
transparent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But they are the best ones, because they really make me laugh. I love it when I laugh throughout a whole reading. So I had a reading literally before I logged on with you. And the lady that was coming through was the lady's mother. And she was talking about her father. So her husband and this lady's father. And she was literally saying, right, he's got to get up off his chair and he's got to start moving. He can't just sit here being lazy and lounge around. So I said this to the lady, and I was like, was your mum really bossy? Because she's making me feel like, come on, chop, 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 chop. So yeah, no, they will be totally honest. And I love it when their characters come through like that.
So that's another piece of evidence, right? Like them showing
Yeah.
their characteristics or personalities coming
Yeah.
coming through more and shining through that experience for the
Yeah.
person that is grieving. What's your advice for those that are grieving right now? Like, I know our natural tendency is to run away from that and to push it down, but what is your advice for someone who has recently lost someone that is going through it?
So be open to the support that's around you, and allow spirit in. Grief is a complex process, really, and everyone's going to go through it in different ways. But for me, I feel like, just know that they are still with you, that their love has transcended, and that they may not have their physical body here, but their soul and their spirit is around you. And, just to have that understanding that they're close by. And if you just think about them, speak about them, remember them, they love to be remembered. They want to know that they're still in the thoughts. So in that grieving process, when we shut ourselves down, when they've gone, that's it, they've left me, and they're feeling perhaps angry, you're actually pushing their loved ones away. They find it very difficult to get in. So by keeping an open mind, keeping your heart open, and allowing those signs to come, that for me probably is what I would advise most people, because we can run away, can't we? We can hide and have that fear. But if we're open, the spirit world can get through to us. It's a little bit like treacle, if we're feeling like that and really stuck, it's hard for them to filter through. And then anytime that they do, if we're not aware of it. So I always say, if they send you a sign, if you get a sign from the spirit world, or you get that feeling that they're there, then welcome them and say thank you, because they've tried really, really hard to get that across. If we then say, no, it's my imagination, they've got to find another way. They've got to find another way in, and they'll keep trying, but it's harder for them, So I always say, keep that open mind, and whatever your faith is, whether it's spiritual or attached to a different religion, keep that faith, because believe you me, they are trying to get that communication. The first type of communication that they will want to give you is, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm still around you. And And I think a grieving person, that's what they want to hear anyway.
Sure. Yeah. What are your hypotheses on what happens when we die? Like, where do we go? Do we go to a belief system? Do we go to heaven? Is there a hell? Is there, like, what are your thoughts on the different dimensions, the different possibilities, the space in between life? What are your thoughts on that?
Again, this is quite controversial. I always align myself to the light. I always align myself to the highest possible vibration. So I understand that as we pass over, we go into, I always call it heaven, because for me, that's part of my upbringing. So for me, it's always heaven. But I don't necessarily feel heaven is up there. I think it's all around us. So, there's no time or space. But I feel like there's different levels. So I feel like, depending on the type of human being that we've been through, or the type of life that we have, the karma that we've got attached to, I feel like there's probably different levels in the spirit world. And again, if you speak to some of my friends, they'll tell you that I don't really go in with the whole hell thing. I just see it as a lower energy and a higher energy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, who really knows until you experience that, right? Like, we can hypothesize all we want, but we don't really know. We can talk to mediums and they can kind of give us some evidence that you're communicating with our past loved one, but until we actually experience it for ourselves, I don't really know if we can really say for sure this is it, right? And I think there's multiple truths. I think there's an infinite amount of truths out there, and I think you can experience all of that, right? I think we get so hung up on what we think is actual us, like the actual part of us that goes on after this life, because we want to think that we're human. And so we envision ourselves as like a human soul, almost like with this body. But I think if we're consciousness, it doesn't mean that we go to the next world as a human. Like, we go as consciousness, whatever that looks like.
Energy.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. As energy. Yes. Because we resonate with energy.
Yeah. Like, I've had dreams where I'm the observer, like I'm just observing an event, or I'm observing an experience, and I'm just kind of there taking it all in. I kind of like, oh, well, maybe this is the larger consciousness system. Like, just observing every single one of us living our lives, but also can take itself and like implant it in the experience, and it can experience it for itself, like in first person. And then it can go back into the meta viewpoint and then also look at it from that. I think we get so hung up on, like, just, I don't know, belief systems. Like, people are like, I don't know. I just feel like the more open you are to experience, like, I think the more that you can become more spiritual in itself, and whatever that means to you. I just think it's opening yourself up to different possibilities of who you are, larger aspects of yourself, allowing that to come in and blending with that. I feel like, we're never going to know the answer until we actually pass and move away from here. But the more open-minded you are to who you truly are, I think that's when you start letting more things in. If you're closed-minded to certain beliefs, and this is the right way, and this is what it has to look like, and this is where my family members go when they die, I feel like you'll probably experience that when you leave, but you're also like closing yourself down to possibilities here, if that makes sense.
I think so. And I think we all have to resonate, whatever resonates with us, with ourselves. So, my belief systems, I've always said to people that this is what I feel, this is my interpretation. As you say, I don't know until I pass over, but this is what I've had in communications with my guides, my angels, with all the readings that I've done. These are what I believe. I had two things. One, I did a past life regression with somebody, and I took her through the whole usual thing that I normally do. And I said to her, right, look down at your feet. What are you wearing? She said, I haven't got any feet. I was like, what do you mean you haven't got any feet? She said, I'm a swan. I don't have feet. And so we did the whole past life regression thing, and I took her through 2 different other lives. And I went back to my guys and I said, well, how did that happen? And they went, well, a life is a life. We're just energy. And she needed to learn the karma and the lesson of that life as the swan, because it wasn't actually a particularly nice one either. She got like pelted to death with stones and stuff. It wasn't particularly pleasant. But it did transpire that she had a fear of water. So she didn't like the water. So that was like linked into a fear. So again, that for me was evidence that, energy is energy and life is life. It doesn't matter what form that we take down here. And the other thing is I did one of my own kind of like past life regressions. I did it on myself, and I asked my guys to show me like a point of origin. And I went off to Lyra, like the star system, and it was just like I was in the middle of the universe, for all I can describe, and it was vast. And I didn't really see anything, but I knew that I knew everything. And I can't put that into words, but I could feel it. So again, there's lots of examples where, we have this from movies and books, this is what heaven looks like. But actually, I think it's very different. And as you say, we resonate energetically. So
you had your viewpoint of your origin of consciousness, and it was in some type of star system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And you had this knowing. What was the knowing?
Again, just that I knew everything. I was just completely connected. Everything was there. I knew everything. I was part of everything. I felt particularly very safe. I felt loved. It just felt normal. And I felt really big. Like I knew everything. Just that was it. I just knew everything. And I said I haven't the words to describe it, but it was powerful.
Do you think that's the origin story of everyone? Like maybe that's the original origin story?
I think we've all come from somewhere. Yes, definitely. Wow. And I feel that we come through perhaps different star systems, depending on, and as we go through each life, whether that's on the earth, which we've probably all had hundreds of, or whether it's from different star systems, we are picking up those gifts. So particularly the ones that I've gone through have been very strong with healing, like the Pleiades and things like that. And I think that's where when I do healing, so going back to that first time when I went to the healing circle, I had to say to the guy, I don't understand. When I hold my hands out, I radiate a blue light. And I just didn't know what that was. And he just said, that's your healing energy. So when I linked to the Pleiades, that's a blue. And now it's like a peacock blue. So I feel like I've picked that up a long route. And so that's part of my makeup, part of my energy.
So speak more to that. Like I am still kind of new to all the different like Pleiades, star system peoples, and what is their cultures and stories. So when you found out that you were linked to that, was that through a past life regression? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, again, I didn't see. So I have led somebody through a past life regression, and they had another life on Andromeda, and he was able to describe everything. I haven't been lucky enough to have that. I just knew that that's where I came from. So it was a knowing. And I've had to teach myself this. So I've then gone back and found on Google what does it, what are Pleiadians like, because again, I'm a medium, I'm a healer, and I'm a medium. This for me is like something else I need to now explore. So I haven't got all the answers for that. But from what I've read, that's the color that radiates. They're all about healing and peace in the earth. And I'm like, well, that fits. So
that feels good. So yeah,
it feels right. And that's why I say if it resonates with me, then that's my truth.
Wow. Yeah. So as you go down this path of spirituality and of consciousness exploration, like how has your spirituality evolved, and how does that affect your reality in general?
So I just feel more connected. I've always loved nature. I've always had to be out in nature. Being an earth sign, being a Virgo, I've always preferred the trees and the grass and the flowers to perhaps the water. I'm not saying I don't like the water, but I like to be outside. And I feel like the way that I've grown, for me, is spending all these years that I've been in this body, understanding myself. Who am I? How do I connect with other people? What are my truths? What do I like? What do I not like? Why do I think I'm here? And it's just connecting into those energies and looking at the things that I like, looking at the gifts that I've perhaps got and how that helps other people.
Mm-hmm. Do you think I'm sure there's an association to this, but like past lives, right? Like, was there a past life that set you up to be a medium in this life?
One that I loved, which I came out of and thought I could go back into that life. And that was literally being like probably a witch. But the witch didn't come to me. It wasn't like I was a witch. I was a lady that lived in the forest with all my herbs. So that tells me, what I was doing. And that was back in Avalon time, which is why I'm obsessed with Glastonbury. I love that energy around there. And I just lived a very, very simple life. And I knew that I did healing, and I knew I had people around me. I didn't see anybody in that life, but I knew that I wasn't alone. But I tended to the earth. I used the herbs, and I used them to help other people. So it was all about healing. And now when I look at myself now, I'm a vegetarian. I do the healing. I'm always drinking herbal tea. So for me, I can see the patterns. So I feel like you take on some of those things through your life. And I think we're all shaped by our past lives, which for me, past life and past life regression is just as important or just as necessary as doing all the meditations and linking in with the spirit world as well. It's the knowing who you are is the important part.
Do you think they're really past lives, or do you think they're happening right now?
Yes, I do. I believe that they're happening right now. I think we're living simultaneously. I think the past, the present, and the future is all happening at one time. Please don't ask me to explain that because I haven't the words, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel. So, we can make those changes. So what we do today is affecting perhaps the past and the future.
How do we step into that future possibility, those future timelines to I feel like there's so many different timelines that Trey, is living right now. But how do I, from this standpoint where I'm at today, step into that possibility that I'm, desiring or like trying to create and bring forth that energy into this moment to get me there?
I think meditation is a good way of connecting and seeing what comes up. So you probably had deja vu as well, where, we're going, oh, I've been here before. Maybe our future or our past connections are doing that as we speak, which is why we are tapping in, because we're all linked consciously. We're linked. And I believe that, we're from this big ball of space, this oneness. And for us to evolve, we come down as sparks, and we're living different lives so that they can all be fed back to, who we are, that oneness. So that's my understanding of it. And I think, time is a real man-made thing. We live linear, but it's not like that. And I always say that to people when they're coming to me. I always express to people that this is what's going to happen in a reading. This is what I'm going to endeavour to do, link into your loved ones and stuff, and you'll have this guidance, but you have your own free will. And I think that is really important, that there are navigation points and destinations that that are fated, but how we get there. And I always describe it to friends and people, family, that you've got your motorways, you've got your A roads. This is for us anyway, your B roads, all your little country lanes, so you've got lots of different points to come around and get to that. But how you do that or what road you go on is your free will. And I think, that is part of the time process. So it can take us longer or shorter. And I think that's also why whenever people ask me, so when am I going to meet somebody? When am I going to get this new job? When am I going to move? I'm like, time and spirit is really bad. They can say soon, and that could be years because it's in the blink of an eye for them, so time is a really difficult one to predict.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. I think you're right on that it's man-made. It's created here in this 3D reality. And we've been programmed to believe in it. So we don't understand that concept of here and the now, like everything is happening, everything is unfolding. Have you ever been able to connect with, you've been able to connect with people's loved ones, right? Like, have you ever been able to connect with spiritual masters and have a communication with them and receive guidance in your own life or bring some of that energy into this reality?
Yeah, so I do that a lot in my meditations. So there's a lot of ascended masters that I like to link into. I'll tell you a little story. I was ever since a child, when you look in the mirror, and I used to, I don't know why, but I used to do it myself late at night when I was younger, just to scare myself. But I always noticed that one of my eyes was a bit dodgy. And I just thought, oh, that's really weird. And then as I kind of like got more into this, I realized that perhaps, it's a past life. Maybe I've had an arrow through my eye. Maybe I've lost my eye. Something else has happened to my eye. Didn't give it too much thought. And then I had a vision of Odin that came through to me. And again, I knew it was a Norse god, and I knew that, there was something to do with enlightenment or something. And I had to Google him. And when I Googled him, I realized that he didn't have an eye. And I just thought, yeah, he's been connecting with me, guiding me. I've been working with him for a very long time. And so then there's other ones as well. There's other ones. So when I do my Rahani, there's Kuan Yin that I'm really linked into. I actually love the Christ energy, and Mother Mary is very important to me. So there's a lot of ascended masters that I tap into, and either they turn up in my healing room when I'm healing, or I'm asking them to join me because I know that this person needs it, or in fact, I might need it.
Sure.
Sometimes I ask them, but I think ascended masters are, and the difference between them. So when I'm linking into spirit world, so if I'm linking into your loved ones, they've got a different energy, and it's very much the energy that they would have presented when they were here on earth. When you connect to the angels, for me, my energy goes up really, really tall, and they've got a real peaceful, beautiful, harmonious kind of energy, even though it's powerful. And ascended masters are really strong. They've just got that sense of like, we've got you. They're quite powerful. So they all feel very different as you connect into them.
What's the difference between, besides the energy, right? Like, what's the difference between us, like who we are, and angels and ascended masters?
So again, it's more to do with like the energy of the character as well. So when the loved one comes in, it's very, very chatty, and they're it's like bringing you back into the same room and just talking and communicating, and they're giving you love and guidance and things. When you connect to the angels are very, very soft and very, as I said, very healing, very loving, very gentle, very reassuring. When you connect into the energy, so they make me feel really tall as well, because a lot of the angels are quite tall. When you link into ascended masters, I feel kind of like strong. I feel like warrior-like, and they are really funny because they're just like to the point. So you asked me about, whether spirit people, our loved ones, show their character and are really direct. You want to link into the ascended masters for that, because they don't.
What do they say? What do they say? Do they don't hold back?
No, they don't hold back, but not in a way that is chatty. It's kind of like, right, you've got to get on with this. You've got to do this. You've got to move here and be open to that possibility, and it's kind of like, come on, we've got a job to do. That's how
So
I
they'll
feel
give you
that
specifics of like what to do. Like, hey, man, Trey, you need to go get your butt up and over here to this location, and this is the work you need to do, and these are the people you need to see, and this is what you need to start doing. Is that right?
So again, that can be your loved ones, okay, because that comes in as more gentle. A spirit guide or an ascended master would be very much like, you're on your spiritual path. You need to connect with, say, crystals. You need to do this. You need to do that. They give you specific pieces of information to guide you. And I always feel that it's like moving you forward. Whereas the spirit world, our loved ones are more kind of like, well, you can do this, you can do that, and be all right, and and it's more kind of chatty. The angels are just that reassurance that I've got your back, and I'm here, and I protect you, and you can fly, and I'll catch you. I'm walking with you. So if you visualize those wings for me, it's like you're encompassed with all that love and support from the angels. But the guides are the ones that get you to where you need to be. They're your teachers. They're the ones that really move you forward.
I wonder what it is that we are, or on the like evolutionary scale of consciousness. Like, you talk about angels, we talk about ascended masters, we talk about Christ consciousness. Like, is this all the things that we're working up to as far as like the human consciousness? Like, when I pass and I go over to the other side, like, do I jump right back into a life, or do I, depending upon how much work I do inwardly, Like, do I ascend? Like, have they ever given you information on that?
A lot of it's about ascending. That's what we're here to do. We're here to evolve, and we're here to ascend. Excuse me. So it's making sure that our lives are mattered, that we're following the path. So my understanding, and I've seen this, and it's my understanding with my guides, is that you have, what, for a better word, a meeting room, a round table where you all sit and you plan your life, and you plan for the soul connections to come down with you. So they may be your partners, your children, your parents. You plan out your life, and then the guides, the angels, your loved one, they're all helping you to get to that particular point. So there will be points of guidance, but the reason why we come back to Earth is because we have free will. So they can say, look, we agreed that we were going to get you to this point. What you're doing? You're going off in that direction. So they'll send us signs, or they'll make life a bit difficult for us, maybe, or they'll put things in the way, to kind of like nudge us back onto the right path. But I think ultimately, we go to the end of this life, we pass over. I always feel there's a transitional phase. So the first thing that they'll do is to make sure that everybody else down here is okay. And then there will be a healing process that they will go to, so they can build up their energy. And then it's up to you when you choose to come back down again. I think this is also quite a delicate situation, but my understanding also is that sometimes if we jump back too quickly, we haven't planned enough, or we haven't prepared enough. And sometimes we get to a certain point and we might think, do you know what, life's a bit too hard. I don't think I'm really ready. I don't think I'm equipped. And you might find that some people might choose to go home earlier than they wanted to, because it's just too hard for them. There's lots of different reasons why people leave too early. Sometimes it was planned, and it's for the people that are around them to experience. So I'm not saying that's for every case, but I think that, I don't know about you, but I'm certainly not prepared to come straight back down again. I want to have a little bit of rest up there before I decide I'm going to come down. So I think, we come down when it's right. I don't think we come straight back down. I don't think we're ready to come straight back down.
The people that take their own lives, right, when they end the game a little early, what is the reaction when you speak to them on the other side? Like, do they regret it? Do they? I mean, there may be a plan, right? Like these people were supposed to experience this grief and clear whatever karma, but like, what's their message when they get on the other side?
Again, it's reassurance that they're okay. It's reassurance that they hadn't done anything wrong to kind of make them want to go back home. So the love is still there. I get people that say that I just couldn't do it. It was just too hard. It was just too difficult. I had no other options. I needed to go. And then I've had them where they've gone, yeah, I shouldn't have gone. It was, and I'm really sorry. But ultimately, I feel like when we passed, we're meant to pass. I feel like there is that plan that when it is our time. And I think when you hear stories that when people pass over or they've had an accident, they have that choice to come back. So maybe, again, that's part of the process. So if you're meant to go, you stay over there. If you're not meant to go, you will have a choice. So if it's been like an accident or something, or we haven't looked after ourselves properly. So maybe we've done something with alcohol, driving too far, we've been reckless, or what have you, maybe that wasn't part of the plan, but maybe that's part of the wake-up plan. So as we come back down, we can choose to live in a different way. So I think there's a lot of planning involved. I think there's a lot of weaving around, in the spirit world. And I think, we do have this free will, but I think a lot of it, our soul and our intelligence knows much better than we do in our own 3D body.
Do you think there's an immediate remembering of who we are, like when we leave these bodies? Do you think there's like, I now remember who I am, or is it like a slow transition where you have to, like, you have your guides, you have past loved ones meet you, take you to the rest area, and then you kind of rest up, and then you remember? Like, have they ever spoke to that?
I've had something briefly, not always, but my understanding is that sometimes if it's a shock or a trauma or an accident, they may have that feeling of, hang on a minute, where have I gone? But I think that part of the transition as we're leaving the body, I think, we have people there with us. So we'll have loved ones with us, we'll have guides, we'll have angels with us. So we know nobody comes into this earth on their own and nobody leaves on their own. But I feel like some people will. So if you had like a cancer, like a long illness, you may have to. It's not rid your body, not rid your energy, but you need to clear that energy from you. So that's the healing process, and then you become stronger. So I think as you leave, the links and the veil maybe is very, very thin. So you keep coming back. So it is all for me like transitional. And then you do the healing work, the healing process, and then you'll have that choice as to whether you want to come back and then what that life is going to look like.
So I recently was very intimate with death. I lost a loved one, and there were some things that kept coming up that I thought were interesting. One, he kept seeing people that weren't there. In our reality, he was seeing them. And then he was always itching his nose. And then something about like he would be there, and then next thing you know, he wouldn't be there. Like it seemed like he was both in and out of consciousness and just kind of going somewhere else. Can you speak to that at all?
So that was the person that was passing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So as I said before, I believe that there is that process, there is that transition in, and to prepare our body, our soul to transition, you will perhaps, that's why people have visitations. They say, they can see people around them because they're coming in to help them with that transitioning. So I feel that what you're describing is perhaps that preparation for his journey back home. Definitely.
And then like I was seeing and reading some stuff, like a lot of people that are in hospice care for whatever reason, like they'll scratch their nose. And I didn't know, like, I don't know, maybe there is a commonality, maybe there isn't, but like, what if it's like I don't know, maybe it's something to do with the third eye. Maybe it's something to do with, the spirit coming in and out. I don't know. Is there any, like, have you heard anything about that? Any relationships or correlations to the nose?
So I always itch in my head. So it's a bit of a joke, really. So whenever I link in with somebody, I'm like, I haven't got fleas, honestly, I promise you, because it's the spirit energy. So sometimes people feel it like a cobweb over their face, and that's the spirit energy. Sometimes we go hot or cold. Sometimes we get the shivers because we feel that they've stepped into us, or sometimes we just get that kind of, as I say, like cobwebs. So things become itchy, or they'll touch our hair or something. So that's when I know that spirit are also around us. So that is quite a common one.
Wow.
We become very sensitive, very heightened. So that's why we're able to tune into that. If you're busy running around day to day, you're not aware of those things. But particularly people who are, near to passing, or people that are sensitive, like mediums or healers, you're going to be able to be aware and feel that.
It's probably the most intimate moment of our lives is the moment of our passing, and to share it with someone, like, and be vulnerable in that moment. There's such beauty in that.
Surrender.
Yeah, surrendering to that. Like there is like a part of the ego death there in that moment, because you're not this strong version of yourself that you were. Like you're in it, like you're getting ready to transition, and it can be what we, the ego could try to set it up the best that they can and say, this is how I want to pass, and this is what needs to happen, and this is, X, Y, and Z. But in those moments, it's kind of like, if you have the gift of being able to say goodbye to someone, like the beauty in that, and then it's like the most vulnerable moment, because it's just them. They're just a reflection of who they used to be, and they're transitioning. So everything looks totally different. Like their bodies, their face, like it just isn't who you remember them to be. And they're sharing that with you, and to receive that and be with that energy and during that moment of transition, to me, is probably the most beautiful gift that anyone can give you. To be able to say goodbye to someone, it's such a beautiful thing.
You're absolutely right, and I've witnessed this recently. And the journey of them passing was, I used to think that people would think I was weird by saying it was beautiful and it was healing, but you've just said exactly the same thing. And I feel like that was a gift, to be able to be there while they are making that journey back home, and the surrendering, the giving up, and you say, you know, the letting go of the ego. This person was fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and then eventually they were like, I have to let go now, don't I? I have to just say, you know, it's okay. And that was the hardest point. But they did it, and then they transitioned beautifully, and it was the most peaceful thing.
Do we pick the day and time that we leave this world?
I believe so. I believe we're born at a certain time because we're born into certain energies. So star signs, vibrations of numbers. So that would be the year, that would be the month, that would be the date, the location. All of these hold different vibrations. You know, different countries will have different religions. So whatever it is that we need to experience in this life will be dependent on when we're born and where we're born. And I feel that we have that time span. And I feel that that perhaps is the end and destination. And people often come to me and they say, you know, my mum's poorly, my dad's poorly, my nan's poorly. I'm like, that's nothing that I can do. I'm not able to tell you when they're going, because nobody knows. It's like a baby being born. You get your due date. Is it always accurate? No, because the baby's born when it's meant to be born, at the time it's meant to be born. And I think that's the same with passing. So there's a time, and we're not meant to know. If we were meant to know, imagine the power of that, and consider what we might do in that last few moments, because we think at this time we're going. So I don't think we're meant to know. I mean, we can have a rough idea, particularly if we're poorly, but I don't think we're meant to know. I think that's not for us.
What is it about motherhood that strengthened this ability for you? Like, what is it about bringing children into this world, or the hormonal change, or the physical change of being a mother? How and why does that strengthen mediumship abilities and females especially?
Yeah, so for me, obviously I was around children all the time because I was a teacher. But when I had my own children, you have that fighting instinct, you know, you have that responsibility, and you have the most amazing love. And then nothing else really matters. Nothing matters, because, you know, you're here to look after your children. You're here to guide them, to, you know, because they're vulnerable. And I think for me, it was what I was always meant to be as well. So you say about, you know, was I always meant to be a medium? Yes, but I was always meant to be a mother. And so I stepped into I fulfilled a massive area that I needed to fulfill. And that's when I could then, yeah, whether that is emotions as well, but, you know, you step into that. And for me, motherhood really changed who I was. I think it changes I think it changes fathers, don't get me wrong. I think it changes everybody.
Well, it definitely changes us, I can tell you that.
It's not just about the women, but I think, you know, you have a different perspective on life. And to go through something as intimate as childbearing and, you know, giving birth, I think that's also very powerful.
Oh, 100%. I think this conversation has been very powerful. Alison, how can people find you? How can they reserve a session with you and get to know you a little bit more?
Oh, thank you. So you can go on my website, alisongraymedium.com. I'm on Facebook, Spiritual Insights, Instagram, I think that's Alison Grey Medium. And then you can email me, alisongraymedium@gmail.com.
I love it. Is there anything on your heart that you want to share right now with someone that's listening to this that may need to hear it?
That makes me emotional. I just think, you know, just trust and believe who you are, and keep your heart open. Keep your heart open, I say. Keep connected, keep your heart open, and speak your truth. Don't hide. Communication is a powerful thing.